Okay.
Right. Okay, thank you, folks. And good afternoon and welcome to the Gower AONB Partnership Steering Group. Sorry.
Chair, can you ask everybody to mute? Because it's
yes,
terrible.
if you would, please. If you could mute. There's a few people who haven't muted the button. Right. Yeah. Is that clear for everyone now? Yep. Okay. Right. Well, as I say, welcome to the Gower AONB Partnership Steering Group meeting, been held this afternoon at 2 p.m. Before we start the meeting, members may well know that Keith Marsh, Councillor Keith Marsh of Bishopston Ward, has passed away. He was a long-standing member of the forum here for many years, and valuable contributions came from Keith in both this forum and the council itself and the community that he represented. So if you would, for a minute, please, shall we have a moment's silence in memory of Keith? Thank you. Okay, thank you all. It's much appreciated. Do you take over this first item? Yeah?
No, I do. As you Vice Chair. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Right. Sorry, my apologies. The first item on the agenda is the election of the Vice Chair for the 2020-2021 municipal year. Do we have any nominations, please? Have we received any?
No.
No? Any nominations, please?
Can I ask Paul, who was the previous Vice Chair?
Stephen.
Steve Hurd.
Yeah, Steve Hurd. Yeah.
All right.
Mike, you had your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to suggest, if we don't have any nominations at present, we have another election to the AONB steering group in June or July 2021. If the group are content, we could ask Steve to continue to be Vice Chair for the remainder of the period.
I would nominate Steve, Paul, if he's happy to carry on.
If somebody'd second that, then.
Yeah.
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 Okay, thank you. Then can see members are in favour of Steve becoming Vice Chair again. I can see Gordon and Jan, Mark. Okay, yeah. Yes, it's carried. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and then item 2, we have one, I think, apologies for absence.
From Paul Tucker.
From Paul, okay. No other apologies coming in? No, thank you. Item 3, disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. Are there any? No, thank you. Item 4 then is to approve and sign the minutes as a correct record of the previous meeting. You'll see that on page 1 to 5. I'll go to page 1. Page 2, 3, page 4 and 5. Would someone move that as a true record, please?
Aye.
Thank you. Right, job done. Item 5 then is on page 6. That's Chris is to give us an update on the Clyne Valley Country Park.
Thank you,
Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. But I will pass this on to Mike because Mike's been dealing with all the
right, okay.
up to the minute details on that.
Okay, thank you, Chris. You'll see there is a note in the agenda pack, but I'll just give you a quick update. There are a number of projects going on in Clyne Valley Country Park at the moment. The largest is probably the active travel route, which is running up the valley and will provide a surfaced route to Olcha. Work there should be starting in early January after Christmas and New Year. Other projects are the Ivy Tower. We're expecting consent from CADU shortly so that we can go in and put scaffolding in the internal part of the tower so we can take out the growth, the small saplings and other growth from inside and on top of the tower itself. Then in late spring, we should be having contractors come in to stabilise the masonry along the inside and the top of the tower. As I say, some of that is subject to consent from CADU. We've got a bat survey and some vegetation removal happening sometime this next month or so. We're also working, we as in the AONB team, are working with the Clyne Valley Community Project to produce interpretation panels. So far, I think we're talking about 7 interpretation panels around Clyne Valley, with the possibility of 3 or more threshold signs and way marking as well to match with that. Most of this is being done with additional Welsh Government funding that we've managed to get hold of within this year. The shaft mounds, which is medieval mining remains, the survey that we've had on that reports that the damage is less bad than we'd feared. I think we're still discussing them and possibly later with CADU whether or not any restoration work needs to be done or whether they're simply best recorded and left as they are. So there's a good deal going on in Clyne at the moment. If anyone has any specific queries, I'm happy to deal with those if I can. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. Much appreciated. Any hands up? Oh, sorry, I got one hand up. Barbara and Linda. Barbara?
Thank you. As chair of the Clyne Valley Community Project, I would just like to clarify a few things. As Mike said, there are 2 distinct projects going on in the valley, and we're working closely with Mike and colleagues regarding the sense of place funding. But we had little knowledge of the active travel project. There is uproar locally regarding this, the active travel project. On Friday, I met with Simon Jones, who's leading this project, Alan Thomas and Robbie Meredith, and we spent more than 2 hours walking the route and discussing this. It seems to me that it's a done deal. So we were discussing damage limitation and how best the project can progress. They are very aware that the communication has been dreadful, and it seems to me that all the links back to the Senedd and beyond have delayed and delayed. So the first that a lot of locals ever knew about this were signs put up in the valley. And there's a lot of discontent about that. That's one thing that people are cross about. The other thing is people are afraid that it's going to become a super highway from Olcha Lane across the tip down to Ynys Newydd. the people we met with talked in detail about the materials they were going to use and how they were going to be applied. Because there's been a lack of consultation and information, there's a lot of hearsay going about. I think it would be very useful for everybody to somehow, for the council to be able to make everybody aware of what's actually going to happen. Although on the website of the council, the active travel plans are there. I'm not sticking up for one side or the other. Seldom are things black or white in life. They're usually grey, and it usually requires compromise. But there's a lot of negative feeling going about, and I just want to say that I have met with them, and it was a very interesting, positive progression. I don't know if that helps the situation at all to clarify things with anybody.
Thank you for that. I got one hand. I got a hand up. It's just marked L. Is that?
Yeah, Chair. I mean, Barbara's actually absolutely right.
Hang on, I'll have to go.
Oh, Mark. All right. Can I try and catch this other one in? Come on, Mark.
Me, sorry, Chair. Do you want me to speak, my child? Yeah. Right. So, Barbara's very correct on what she says. There's a lot of lack of knowledge going out, and I think it leads to what I put my hand up to saying, that there is no sort of overall plan or overall management or goals for Clyde Valley as far as Swansea Council goes, and until recently it's dealt with matters on an ad hoc basis and hasn't had any major issues. But I think because of COVID particularly, people have found this jewel that's on their doorstep, and many more people are going in there and enjoying it in various different ways. And that's sort of brought it up in people's attention. And I think it would really help if, I don't know whether it's the team in Gower AONB or somewhere else, if there was encouragement of the council and assistance to the council to build an overall plan about what is the purpose of Clyde Valley, or the many purposes of Clyde Valley, because it's got an environmental and ecological one, it's got a historical one, it's got a health and fitness and general enjoyment value. And by and large, they should work together, but occasionally they clash, particularly if people don't know what's going on. So I think there's a lesson to be learned there that maybe we can help with. I'd certainly happily help as a keen cyclist, and my son goes mountain biking and that sort of thing. It is a wonderful facility. We need to make the most of it and try and avoid these clashes and lack of information.
Yeah, that's a fair comment, Mark. Before I call Paxton in, I got another hand up, and so if you'd like.
Steve, I think. Steve Heard, I think.
Is it Steve? Is it? All right, Steve.
Can't hear you.
No, I'm going to.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
Ah, right. Yes.
Yep.
There we are.
I've been asked by quite a few horse owners that use that area. There are several bridleways running through Clyde Valley, sorry. In fact, far more than I realised. There doesn't appear to be any reference to the use of horses here. What is actually happening toward that? Because there's plenty of people riding push bikes and there's plenty of people riding horses, but they don't necessarily mix that well. Over to you guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
May I answer?
Can I bring Paxton in first? And Paxton, and then come back to Barbara.
Okay. If Barbara wants to answer that first, Chairman, then by all means.
All right. Barbara?
Thank you. This was a concern, and I've talked to Bridget a lot about this. Bridget Stein, who's also a horse rider.
All right.
Talking to highways, the initial surface that they put down will indeed be tarmac, but when that has settled, they are then covering it with a mix of bitumen and something else that I forget what the technical term is, I'm afraid, that will make it acceptable to horse riders.
Ah, right. Yeah.
When is that going to happen? Because there doesn't appear to be anything, again, it's a communication issue, because there is nothing to confirm nor deny that.
Highways Department had to follow council procedure to put up signs saying that the bridleway, this particular bridleway, which is going to become a shared user path, would be closed for 6 months. But as Mike intimated earlier, the works themselves aren't actually going to be starting until or after Christmas, I was told.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Barbara. Paxton.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to build on something that Mark said earlier about how we make sure that this area is properly maintained and guarded. Obviously, we have a responsibility as a city council in terms of the AONB, and I certainly did suggest at the last meeting, I think, that we ought to consider some sort of designation or some sort of mechanism within the council to ensure that we still have that. We have the oversight over Clyne Valley, just to the same extent as we have over the AONB. Sorry about that, that's my phone going off, but my wife will pick that up in a minute anyway, hopefully. So it was just that I wanted to say is that I really do think that we need to be looking at this as a council to see what mechanisms we need to put in place to ensure that it gets this protection in much the same respect as the AONB does.
Okay, right, thanks. I got Mike and Chris.
Unmute, Mike.
Unmute yourself, Mike.
I will just answer a couple of those points fairly quickly. Yeah. Talking to Steve and Barbara, as I understand it from Highways, map's gone down and has settled, which doesn't take too long once it's been rolled. They will then look to use a spray and chip surface with, I think it was 5mm grit, was it, Barbara? On the surface of the active travel route. That should give it a reasonably countryside appearance. It'll also provide better grip for various users. What else? The issue on some form of management plan for Clyne Valley, I suspect Chris is about to speak to, so I will leave that. The issue about horse riders in general in Clyne Valley is one that I've spoken to Chris Dale in Rights Away about. He and I are both aware of the issues there, that, you know, the cycling use is making it difficult for horse riders to use Clyne. It is something that we're aware of, and both he and I are looking at various paths and routes to see if we can do some work to improve those, and some of those routes will be aimed at providing routes for horse riders and dog walkers, so that they've got routes that they can use, avoiding the areas that cyclists are using. There is also the issue of mountain biking in Clyne as well, which is a separate issue, but it is one that we're aware of. I think I will leave it there. I think Chris was going to talk about management plans, I hope.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and Mike. Yes, Mark Child's absolutely right. There is a lack of overall objectives for Clyne Valley. Yeah, everybody's aware of what the interest is and the high degree of use that it has and has received in particular over the past year. It is something I'm conscious of. I've started working on just trying to identify the range of council departments that have some sort of responsibility in the valley, and yeah, there's at least a dozen. If you think about biodiversity, countryside access, highways, car parking, through to water safety team, and things that I just hadn't thought of before. And I think there has been a lack of coordination between all of those, and certainly our section, we want to get a better handle on that and to make sure that there is some sort of coordination towards it all. And I'd be reluctant to say that we want to take on the responsibility for the country park, because see there's an awful lot to that. But what I do want to do is to make sure that there's some coordination around the council's activities, and as far as the public is concerned, that there's somewhere specific that they can go to be directed to. So as far as the council's concerned, they know where to go, and then we can coordinate activities and communications in the park. Mm-hmm. Also, obviously, to undertake that management plan process, it takes some resource to do that, and that is something that I'm looking into for us to start that in the next financial year.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Right, no other hands coming up?
Yep, Chair. May I say something again?
Oh, sorry.
I think Gordon wants to speak after me, possibly. Gordon, you've got to turn your phone off mute, by the way. Your thingy off mute. Just two things. Is Clyne Valley itself in the AONB? Because I think part of it might well be.
Certainly was.
And that will affect how it's going to be used and also what you can do there. Has that been allowed for or dealt with?
Yes, it is partially within the AONB. The western bank of the river is within, the eastern side is outside, so it's it does sit on the boundary, and that is an added complication.
Yeah, are there also SSIs there?
Yes. There are also scheduled monuments as well. There is a huge amount of history as well as biodiversity and environmental interest in the area. It isn't a simple site. It's complicated. It has a huge number of users, and some of those conflict with each other. So as Chris said, and as Mark hinted at, it does require something like a management plan, and it does require quite some degree of input into that. It's not something that can just happen on the quiet. It would need a good deal of work from the council, both in terms of public consultation and also sort of just the rather boring infrastructure of having someone responsible for it, having budgets, having work programs and funding to try and deal with the issues there.
And another one issue, going back to the horse riders, when you're mentioning putting grit down on top of the tarmac, you do realise that's not suitable for horse riders?
I know that's part of the problem. I could say that the three different groups of users, horse riders, cyclists and walkers, all really prefer different sorts of surfaces. The problem will be trying to find something that sort of suits all three. And it may be that they require separate routes. Again, that's something that needs to be considered as part of an overall management plan rather than an individual decision that either I or rights of way or highways can make.
The other thing I'm going to say about this as well is linking to other parts of Gower, because we are all sort of interconnected. The cycle routes that are planned and whatever else, we're going to have far more integration between all the users than we have been having. it's looking at the damage that's been done in Clyne through the cyclists. Also, motorcyclists have also been using it. It doesn't bode well for the rest of the AONB when you look at what's planned for places like Clanmaddock Hill and the introduction of more cycle paths and whatever else. And I would like to say a note of caution here. I think we're going to have a far bigger problem with this as it becomes used in a greater percentage by more cyclists. And I think if we're not careful, we're going to lose a lot of the beauty we have.
Okay. Right. Thank you. I've got Paul. Paul Mellon's got your hand up there, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. You know, it just really adding to what Chris and Mike have said. You know, I think the country park extends, from the top of my head, to about 350 hectares or something to that effect. It's split roughly half and half between the AONB and within the boundaries of the city. You know, it is a significant asset. It's obviously got a lot of potential. It had a management plan back in the early 80s. You know, clearly it needs an up-to-date plan now. Obviously, we've got into a discussion of quite a bit of detail, but I think, you know, really the work that Mike sort of highlighted and some of the actions we're in the process of taking are really more for certainly from the natural environment section. It's addressing some immediate concerns that have come about as a result of the increased usage during the sort of lockdown period. You know, in terms of trying to address some immediate problems, sort of the overgrown paths, bridges that are sort of in a poor state of repair. So it's about the basic infrastructure. Obviously, that's been, I think, the active travel proposals have perhaps you know, perhaps caused some confusion, because obviously there is a bit of investment that's sort of been thrown at it from a few different directions. And you know, but in terms of the active travel route itself, and any active travel route, they are shared use routes. So no one user, whether that's cyclists, pedestrians, or horse riders, has priority over the other. But clearly, and we've made representations, and I think we've discussed in the steering group meeting in the past, that there has to be management of the cycling within the country park. Certainly in terms of reducing speed, whether it's signage, whether it's widening the main route that goes through there, or what other measures that are introduced. But we're at the very early stages, and there's a long way to go with this. And you know, I think the management plan and development management plan in discussion with all the various interest groups will have to be input into that. It's not going to happen overnight. But you know, hopefully over the course of the next year that we'll be able to bring that forward, and obviously then perhaps identify some more a dedicated resource perhaps to managing it, because obviously it is that, as Chris has said, it's fairly ad hoc, and you know, we're heavily reliant on the Clyne Valley Community Project as well in terms of what's the work that's carried out there. And we need to work more closely with groups such as them. So that's just a little bit more on the background to it.
Chair, could I just say that this point, there is actually historical and legal precedence towards horse riders above cyclists. In fact, they have right of way. So even if it's a shared use, they still have that.
Okay. I've got. Sorry.
Can you pack me? Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Just a quickie, and I'm sorry to say this, but it's not good enough, really, is it? I think I missed one meeting when I couldn't get on. This should have been brought to this meeting some years ago. This has been on the boil somewhere for an exceedingly long time. So why on earth are we all shutting the door, you know, when the horse is gone, literally? The money's been spent, and it annoys me intensely to hear people say, oh, it's got to be spent by next end of the year. And that's farcical, isn't it? All the trouble that we have to get money these days, and yet we've got people spending money if there's no tomorrow just to spend it. I'm sorry, but I think this is diabolical.
Gordon, if I could just come back to that. This is additional in-year money that has been offered through Welsh Government. We don't have control over that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
We are trying to make the best use of the resources that we have available. And it does cause problems when we try to respond quickly, but we do our best.
Yeah. But as Marcus said earlier and others, I mean, we can pull everything together here so that there's a cohesive plan, and I think that's what's needed. Any other hands up? Any other hands up? John?
Yes, I mean, I have submitted a short paper later in the agenda. The point is that the point of that paper is I was inundated with calls and emails from people interested and upset in the Clyde Valley, really very upset. I'm sorry I had to go out in part of that discussion. My wife is ill and the doctor is calling. But all these have implications across Gower, because suddenly we're getting pressure for cycle tracks. They're sort of, the taste of the moment. They have considerable implications for other users. And what a lot of people saw in not merely the Clyde Valley, or what they felt in the case of the Clyde Valley, but what they clearly saw in the case of the Mail's new scheme, is a kind of way of getting round people, saying that this is a road matter. And that threatens the whole of Gower, it seems to me. If you can play that game once, you can play it again. So that planning matters become road matters which are beyond the consultative process. And that's very worrying. And it's very worrying that somehow people didn't know. And the other thing that's worrying is, as Gordon has made the point, being told the money's got to be spent. In one particular case, the public consultation in the Mails, it obviously has been spent before any consultation or consideration came about. Now, that has very considerable implications for Gower and the AONB, because how are people to take to this kind of thing? How are they to absorb it if there isn't a very considerable degree of consultation and thought? Thank you. Sorry to go on a bit.
Thank you, John. Any other hands up now? Because some hands are still up. Mark, is yours still up? Barbara, still up? Yeah? Did you want to speak, Mark?
Yes, please. Just, I don't know if we're taking Mails Road now or not, but if we are, I'd like to say something.
John, did you want to leave that as a separate item for you?
I'm perfectly happy to discuss it now. I merely pointed out the relevance of it to this particular case.
No, I mean, so, all right. You're happy to go ahead, yeah?
Well, I personally, I don't see it's any relevance at all to this particular case. I mean, they're separate routes on there's no overlap. They're not using the same land or anything like that. Just the fact that there is some cycling in Clyde Valley doesn't mean there shouldn't be anything on Mails Road. Mails Road is, I appreciate that people don't know exactly what's happening when, but there has been a plan of what roads, what cycle routes to bring in to improve the amount of people cycling, safety of cycling, and reduce car use right across Swansea for a couple of years now. The way that the money becomes available for this is annually, and the council submits a bid to Welsh Government for a portion of the annual funds for improving cycle routes across Wales. It gets some with a plan that it's got drawn up, gets the money for that. Now, if it doesn't spend it on that, its chances of getting money next year for a different cycle route are very much reduced because the Welsh Government says, well, you don't know what you're doing. I haven't heard anybody argue against a cycle route down Males Road. There will be any number of technical arguments of how best to do it, whether you favour pedestrians or cyclists or cars, or how many trees you chop down or don't chop down, or how many need it to be, or what kind of route it is. They're all technical issues, but the principle of a cycle route through Males, I think, is something that has general agreement with. The issue again is I think people have been stirred up about this completely unnecessarily. It's a good thing. It's not going to please everybody. You can't please everybody all the time. But if this encourages cycling, reduces greenhouse gases, makes people healthier, I don't know what the argument is against it.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I've got a few hands up still. Are they wishing to come back in? Barbara, your hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to go back to what Chris Lindley and Paul Mellor were saying about the management of the valley. And they know my feelings. It's absolutely long overdue. The interesting and ironic thing is that we have a management agreement with the council for us to be able to do certain things in the valley. And its 5 years is up this coming summer, and we're not quite sure to whom we have to refer in order to get it reviewed and authenticated. But yeah, someone will tell us sometime, I'm sure.
Okay.
I just want to say that may sound very negative. When we've been working with Paul Mellor and Chris and Mike and everyone, it's been great. And what they're doing is great. Thank you.
Okay, cheers. I've got still hands up. Steve, I got your hand up and I got no.
If I can just come in for a second, it's more of a general sort of comment, and it's, I think, a very relevant one. Gordon brought it up. These plans suddenly seem to appear to be there and available when money appears. As the AONB steering group and committee, we know nothing about these plans at all, and yet they seem to be fully formed and ready to go ahead, and off they go. It does make me wonder as to what real, I don't know what the right word to say for it, impact we have as an AONB committee on the actual operations of the council with regards to our area of influence, the AONB. It appears not a great deal. We're not told very much. We're only told more or less what's convenient, and we're certainly not really having much of a voice into what actually comes about. And I'm actually quite concerned about that.
Okay, that's fair enough. I got, is it Hamish, your hand up there?
Yeah, my hand's up.
Chair,
yeah,
if I could just finish for a second.
Yes, sorry,
it's fair enough, but actually it's very easy to sweep under the carpet, and that's exactly what I think is happening. I really do think that we're not actually being treated with any seriousness, and I don't actually think at the moment we're achieving a great deal.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that's an unpopular statement. I'd even put it to a vote and say, who else feels like this?
Well, you know, the idea has been floated by Chris earlier. We need to pull everyone together, all different departments, to have a cohesive plan to manage that part of the AONB.
Chair, how long have we actually been an AONB management committee? How long have we been in existence? You've been chair of the whole period. How many years?
40.
We don't know. So you don't know how long the AONB committee has been in standing? No, I haven't said a figure. We've had various things before, but let's forget the ones that are before. Let's talk about what we have now. How long has the AONB committee been in existence?
Well, Gordon says 40.
No, we haven't been in 40, Mr. Chair.
It's 35 for certain.
No, I'm talking about this current guise.
Oh, right. You can't say that, Chairman,
no,
because
it's just going to be easier to deal with this.
It's the same system.
All right, it's not actually, but we've got an AONB committee. It's been in, what, 2.5, 3 years, is that right?
Oh, longer than that.
Since, I'm not 100% certain. I'm asking the chair and the other council officials here, how long have we been in existence?
10 years.
No, it's not 10 years.
I've been on the committee since 2012, so it's been going since before that.
Okay, let's say it's 10 years then.
Easy 10.
What integration have we had with the operations of the authority regarding the AONB? What have we actually achieved?
Well, we'd have to look back.
Maybe it's a bit of a broad question, but I'm actually concerned because I don't think. I think we're almost put there to say that you are integrating with the general public, but I don't actually think we have a great deal of influence at all. And I think that isn't carried up from the people on the committee who are actually councillors. I am rather disappointed by it. I certainly feel that we're finding things out because the next issue here is Port Eynon, and which the council did a whole study on without telling anybody.
Yeah, okay. Hamish, can you come in now, please?
Yeah, okay. Cycling, active travel. Can I just make sure that we understand there's a distinction between cycling and active travel? There are certain parts of the county that are covered by the Active Travel Act. And active travel is about what it says on the tin. It's about people getting about by bike or by walking. And it is, as such, a functional activity, as distinct from recreation, as distinct from going out for a bike ride, going mountain biking, going walking. And there's a reason for the Active Travel Act. It's because it's seen as a way of sorting out a lot of problems. I must remind people that 33% of Britain's greenhouse gases come from travel, and that's why the governments are trying to take action on that. So we don't want to conflate the routes around Gower for recreational cycling, mountain biking, and everything else with active travel. And the reason that active travel projects come to light is because Swansea had to put forward a plan for active travel. A lot of these routes are either on it or were discussed in some of the meetings. And money is being made available, particularly now following the pandemic, because they realise the value of active travel, and particularly because Swansea has to solve some problems with regard to air quality management. Most of the air quality problems come from car emissions, and I think we need to be careful that we don't confuse the two issues. I don't know if that's helpful at all.
Yep. Thank you, Hamish. John, did you want to come back in?
Yes, I'd just like to say I carefully didn't express any view of the worth or virtue of any of these schemes. What I'm concerned about is the way they're gone about and the implications for the future of Gower of that kind of attitude, and particularly in the case of males, was very skillful manipulation of the system. Furthermore, in that case, no plans were actually made available. And in addition to that, a pressure group called Wheelwrights, which is a cycling pressure group, was allocated a special role by the council. Now, you know, we can all be pressure groups. We can all be special pressure groups. How far is the council going to give in to those and say, you come along with us and we'll help to overcome any opposition or problems that may arise? All of this bears heavily upon how Gower reacts to particular, or how processes to make things work. And whether active travel is travel or leisure, and quite honestly, I don't think it's a very viable distinction myself. It does matter that people are listened to, and that has simply not been happening. The reaction in the case of the Clyde Valley was phenomenal. I mean, I'm in a pressure group, and people simply choked my inbox with protests about this. And that's a very bad sign. That gets things off to a very bad start. The lack of any clear indication and the rather unfortunate attitude of the officers in the case of Mills Road all bespeaks this kind of attitude. How are we going to handle or how is our developments in Gower going to be handled if that is the attitude? That is the point. I'm not commenting at all on the virtues or vices of particular schemes. I don't know enough, but neither do the people of Mayors, for example. Thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry that I had to go out.
That's all right. That's all right. Your best wishes to your wife.
Thank you.
Hamish, you still got your hand up. Did you?
No, I'll put it down. I could go on about this forever. I'll just put my hand down.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Understood. Right. Thank you all. And shall we move on then to the next item, which is Portainen report from Chris. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the report I've put in there is an up-to-date position of where we are with the potential for a proposed new building at Portainen. So Steve Heard mentioned previously about the feasibility study from 2018. Which put forward a number of recommendations and findings, and that was presented by the consultant who undertook that study to the AONB partnership steering group. I think it was December 2018. Or it may, or it may be in early 2019. I can't recall off the top of my head. There was a number of recommendations on that, both in terms of short-term recommendations about some of the management, but also a longer-term recommendation that a new facility down there would help tackle some of the problems about the management of the council estate down there. The Sustainable Development Fund panel approved a grant to commission architects to do this piece of work, and we've gone through the tender evaluation exercise, have now appointed the consultants, and so they have now started work, and we're hoping by the springtime we'll have a better idea about what the potential might be there for a building, what problems it might be able to solve, and there is, as part of that commission, there is an engagement process by the consultants to engage people properly. I think in this particular instance to get a much fuller understanding about what the issues are and how the proposals might be able to help solve them.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, we're going to hand up straight to Steve. Do you have your hand up there? Yeah. You're on mute there. On mute. Unmute yourself first. There you are. Yep.
Sorry.
There
Chris,
you are. Right.
I've been approached by the Community Council. There are great concerns about this building, and also the fact that the consultation that was carried out initially didn't actually include the wider area of the community. The majority of the people who were contacted to make a comment were local business people, not local residents. Portainen itself is greatly used by people living in Skirlidge, Overton, Llandewey, and in fact the Community Council goes from Margam Corner right the way down to Nelston and then over towards Bury Head. No consultation was done in these areas. It is not necessarily the most popular idea at all that's been going on there. Before anything goes ahead, are you actually going to consult with the greater community of Portainen, or are you just going to leave it be?
Okay, thanks. Was a hands up? Sorry.
Sorry, I better put my hand up to in response.
Yeah.
Yes, I say in the briefing note, we are conscious that whatever has happened previously around the consultation, we want to make sure it is wider this time, and that's why the note that I mentioned has already gone out to the community councils, and I'm including Penrice as well as Portynan there for some early engagement, and the consultants are tasked with doing that and should be in touch with the community council over the coming days.
I think the impression that the area are getting is that because architects have been instructed, that they're beginning to feel that this is another done deal.
Well, we do have to start somewhere, Steve.
You do, I agree with that, but not necessarily by instructing architects. That's the groundswell of the community. I'm only reporting it. I'm not getting it from anybody else, from people who live in the community. And their impression is quite simply that this has all been signed, sealed and done. Now you're telling me it's different. I'll go back there and tell them that. I understand the difficulty and I don't wish to be the one who's giving off the bad news. But unfortunately, that's how the community are feeling. It's not my impression. I don't live in Portynan.
Okay, but as Chris has just replied, and I don't know if you want to add to that, Chris.
Well, yes, I do. So, to be able to progress something like that, something like this, we have to have resource in place to do it, and we've been successful in getting the SDF grant to take that work forward. It's very clear that nothing has been decided. Very much the brief to the architect is that that there is no design for the building. There isn't even any definition of what function that building should be. Everybody's whenever we have an AONB meeting and we start talking about the state of the toilets, it's very clear. Portynan comes up as one that could be and should be improved, bearing in mind the number of visitors there. But where that's only one aspect, you look at the feasibility study in terms of the problems and issues down there, whether about the car park access way, there's any number of possible combinations for the design for the function of the building, and until you've got that identified, it's very difficult to actually design the building without that function in mind. So they are starting very much from first principle.
Yeah, fair comment. Mark, your hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not sure if this is the third or fourth time, or maybe more, that this has come before the committee here. And I know it's sort of it's at least a year since I've seen these proposals, and they've been worked up and whatever. So for someone to come to the committee now and so in shock and surprise at what's on them is quite surprising. They've been received well, in my understanding, up till date, and they've been proposals and they've been accepted by the committee, and we've sort of the officers have started to work out how to implement those proposals, how practical they are, what resources are available, and that sort of thing. So I'm not sure what the concerns are now, and clearly any building work will need planning permission, and there's that consultation process there as well. But if we're still considering what the functions of this building is, I think this is a golden opportunity for the community to say what they would like from a building at this location.
Could I just answer, Mark, on that, just for one moment?
Chair, can we have things through the chair, please? Because they don't seem to be going through the chair anymore.
I've got two other hands to go up first. I got PH and RB. That's Paxton. Sorry, Paxton.
On mute.
Paxton.
Sorry, these proposals have been around for some time, Chairman. We were talking initially, or the talk initially was something similar to the design of the building down in Coppet Sands by Saundersfoot.
That's right.
Obviously, anybody who's familiar with that will know that's quite a substantial building. It's going to cost a fair amount of money to build in the end of the day, and I'm just wondering at this stage where we are anticipating that we're going to get the capital finance to be able to do that, if that's what we decide to go ahead with.
Then Roger, and then I come back to Chris. Roger.
Yeah. One of the biggest problems in Port Island is the narrowness of the road. And we get big tour buses going down there, blocking it up completely. Steve will agree with me on that. You get a bus going down to the bottom of the hill, can't go on, can't go back. And a friend of mine lives on the hill, and he says he spends an hour sometimes just clearing the traffic. Maybe worthwhile having a sign at the top of the hill, you know, discouraging them from going down there.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I think, Mark, I mean, the first meeting that this was raised in was in Pennard Community Centre, I think, and a few times since. Chris, you wanted to come back in there? Paxton, your hand is still up.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, it's traffic was certainly one of the issues that the feasibility study raised, both in terms of that access down into the village, but also interaction with pedestrians, bearing in mind there's no footway along part of that. So it's you know, certainly the commissioning of the architects, we have said to them, obviously their role is around the building in terms of what function it should take, but also they need to be mindful about the wider situation and the position of the building, the size of the building, and how it sort of its relationship with the highway. Are there potential options or ideas about improving those situations at the same time? If I could also just come back about the capital cost of the project, I think Paxton, you are absolutely right. Where will that money come from? I think the first question though for us is to actually say, well, how much are we looking for? And obviously we can't do that until we have the concept design and an idea of the construction costs. But certainly, with that information, available information, we can then talk to potential funders and supporters, if it's whether that's Visit Wales or Welsh Government more directly. That's all still for debate when we know that.
Yeah. Okay. Steve, did you want to come back in now?
Yeah, it's more as a direct comment to what Mark Child just said. I'm not shocked by this proposal. I was shocked initially because nobody actually knew about it. And in fairness, in the meeting that was held in 2017 at Pennard Hall, I brought it up because nobody knew about it. I'd already inquired of both Mike and Chris, and it had been set up from a different department within the council without their knowledge as well. I'm afraid to say the communication, as we've already discussed, has again let yourselves down on this. The simple fact of the matter is that there are quite a lot within the people within the community who are not necessarily aware or happy about what is being suggested for Port Island. One of the recommendations was that it was to become a 12-month-a-year destination. Fine, great, but the road infrastructure is wrong, as we've just said. There's no parking there. There are many, many reasons why that is unlikely to happen without substantial planning intervention. Land being made available for parking, for example, costs an awful lot of money. Just building one destination property to cover the toilets is not the answer. The next question to this is what happens when the next village in the AONB want this as well, and the next one, and the next one. Before long, Gower will not be an AONB as we've known it, and it's been protected. It'll be just another Cornwall. I'm only trying to say a voice of, I think, caution here and possibly reason. But one of the things that is going completely wrong is that there is no communication.
Well, that is, as Chris has said, will be or are being written to all the community councils, etc. And it's then, that a discussion could take place there.
Chair, if I can answer that for 1 second, I understand this. What I'm trying to say is the word is out that architects have been instructed. Whether it's right or wrong, the community understand architects being instructed to mean the design of the building. They there take the next assumption, correctly or incorrectly, that it's therefore going to be built, and it's a done deal.
No.
Before these people were consulted, you should have, actually not you personally, but the council and whoever was dealing, should have gone back again to the community. It hasn't happened.
Right. Okay, I got my next speaker now, which is Paul Mell.
Thank you, Chair. Just to sort of come back on that, the point of communication. I mean, I think, what we're talking about is a matter of principle here. And, for probably as long as I can remember, certainly for the best part of 20 years, the policies in the local development plan and the unity development plan have identified Portainen as a key village where the policies encourage appropriate small-scale development for community facilities, sustainable enterprises, etc., within those villages to help sustain those villages, try to make them more of a destination year-round. So the principle of development it has been out there for some time. There's been considerable consultation. It's part of the management of the AONB, and the facilities are there. So I'd have to disagree that I think I think that's a matter for the local community council and the local residents. If they've not communicated the policies that apply within that area and have applied for many years, then and the council have engaged on, then that's more of a local issue. As Chris has said, this is, the council haven't got the expertise to produce some sort of sketches or proposals to take forward. You've got to engage someone. Yes, okay, they're architects. They could have been urban designers. It really doesn't matter. But it's about on the council's land there, the council's facility, on the council's car park and the council's toilet, looking at replacement facilities that would benefit the wider area. They've got to start with some sketches to take to the public, not go to the public first and then come back. So it depends which way you approach it. But there's a chicken and egg, if you like. The council have engaged someone to produce something and take to the community, and wait when it comes out to the community. Then is the opportunity for the community to have their say.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Right, some hands still up, or are they up for no? Okay.
Yeah, could I suggest, Paul, could I speak to you about this afterwards? Because having a blanket 20-year-old policy doesn't really cover what's actually going on presently. I'm only passing on what I've been asked to pass on.
Okay.
The point is shooting the messenger.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, well, if it's okay with you two, we can stay after the meeting and discuss. Yeah.
Sorry, I've got to go. I've got to go at 4 o'clock, but I can do it another time, Steve. Maybe.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
If you could arrange that, then okay. Thank you all. And the next item on our agenda is item 7, and it's Gower society issues. Gordon?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks. When you're ready.
Yes, there are two issues. I don't particularly wish to wade through all of them, but I think I'd like to start with the Article 4 direction that we've suggested, proposed, should be introduced at the Vile. Now, I've got to accept that it's been an exceptional year. There's no question about that. And I have been accused by some of your colleagues in officers there of saying, well, the society should sit back and wait until next year and see what happens next year. Well, I'm sorry, but there is a thing called a wedge, and there is a thing called the thin end of the wedge, which in my experience of the way this organisation works, that next year is probably too late. We've got to stop what's happening now. And all of you who are watching this and participating today have sat around various meetings. Now, it was said that since it was 2012, my time on what was the Gower Forum goes back to, I think the only person I can remember is Keith Marsh being there. So I must have been on this thing for 35 years. You may say it's too long, but that's another argument. But we've discussed these things. We've produced thousands and thousands of words and documents, all utilizing the AONB. And as soon as something comes up that changes the way that the average visitor can take coming to Gower as, I think we've got to prick our ears up and look at it quite closely. None of us thought, none of us, and I think all of us around this table or on this meeting would have thought that what happened down in the Vile last year could happen. We thought it was protected. Well, it's not protected. Anyone can set up shop on any piece of ground within the AONB for 28 days and do what the hell he likes. And I'm not saying that derogatory, it's just that's a fact. Equally, he could set it up very close to where he is setting it up on a different number of land ownerships for perhaps the whole season. So you can have a sequential of 28 days for 6 months of the year without any problem at all. And it's an issue that I think you all should be aware of. Now, to say that it's this year's an exception year is correct. But what I can't get over is that all the thousands of words that have been written about the AONB, we cannot protect it from this one particular type of incident. And if it's happened once, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to happen again. So all I do is ask you to look at what we've written there in that document and just consider it. And we'd like some support from it as well, rather than just say, oh, well, wait and see until what happens next year. We'd like to think that we're getting a bit of support from the people who are actually, at the end of the day, you people around these tables are managing the AONB. And we'd just like your opinion and hopefully your support. The second point I would like to mention, and I'm sorry about last time, my connection dropped out. I didn't even get us this far, but was the protection of trees. Now, Hamish, I'm hoping he's been very helpful on this. There's no question about it. NRW have helped us enormously on this, but it's become patently clear that there isn't the legislation that is in place to act quick enough. If some idiot starts to demolish 24 acres of mature oak trees, he just carries on. He just pretends that he's not been told. And after, 18 months, we had basically 5 or 6 fields where there were 5 or 6 fields full of relatively mature oak trees. So all I'm asking is that the officers in particular, and you as elected members onto the council and volunteers like myself, are aware the tree loss on Gower is going to be catastrophic when we've got the end of this ash disease dieback. You're going to be staggered at the loss of trees that we've got. But we're not protecting what we have got. And that's the big dilemma. There was a case down in Caswell by a well-known entrepreneur, and I'll use that word, a supermarket entrepreneur, just wreaked havoc in a couple of fields he's owned, and the council did nothing to stop him, apart from, I think he took 3 protected trees down. Then there was some reaction. But in the process also, he built a barn that's now being clad. It's got underfloor heating in. He's got a big pool that could be a swimming pool. He's got a borehole. So all these things are happening in the AONB, and even when they're flagged up, they are not stopped. Nobody seems to have the will or the power to stop it. And once it's done, it's done. Thank you.
No, thank you, Gordon. Thank you very much. Is there any other hands up? No? No response? Oh, Paxton, sorry.
Might be a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway. Would it be possible to put an automatic TPO on every tree in Gower?
Hamish?
Hamish is the boy.
Hamish, when
can you hear me? I don't know I'm the right person to answer that question. That's probably, it's a council matter. The council would put tree TPOs on it. I think the important thing is to understand that some of our woodlands are protected by conservation designations, and a lot of those include the coastal woodlands, the Gower ash woods, which are protected by SSSIs and SACs. Some of our woodlands aren't, but you do need a felling license if you're going to fell wood fell trees in those areas. And you can report, I know Gordon's reported them, and the Gower Society's has been vigilant and looking out for this, but if people are concerned about the amount of felling that is happening, they can report it to NRW. You'll find how to report it on our website, and we finding a better yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, could I come back a minute, Chairman, please?
Just a sec.
The reason I asked about
Hamish is struggling, I think, with his connection.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, my internet connection is not great, and they're working on it up the pole outside as I speak. You can report felling. We will investigate it. We have strengthened our forest regulation team, and I think Gordon is hopefully seeing the results of that at one of the sites. This is an ongoing conversation that we would like to have about areas of Gower that aren't afforded special protection in any way in terms of the conservation designation. So I think it's a useful conversation to have in the future about how we look after pockets of Gower that need looking after. I'll leave it at that for now. So I've talked to Gordon and the Gower Society about it and in the future.
Thank you. I got a few speakers yet.
Paul, can I come back in for a second, please, Chairman?
Carry on.
All I was really trying to do, in one sense, was see if, because Gordon said it was impossible to react quickly from a legal point of view to the situation that was occurring down in Cartersford, I think. But I was wondering with the TPOs, purely and simply, whether that would give a more quicker mechanism to be able to stop it, and that's the only reason I asked the question.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, cheers. Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Much as we'd like to have some sort of perhaps a blanket protection in place, it isn't there. There is quite extensive protection. A lot of the woodlands are protected, or they're managed. But I think the best area, and we've made representations to this effect. The Law Commission's been looking at, for a number of years, reviewing planning legislation and dealing with inconsistencies. And one area we've pushed them on, and I think I'm hopeful that it'll come through, is sort of giving the AONB the same status in terms of tree protection as conservation areas are. Conservation, there's all of the trees within conservation areas on Gower are protected or of a certain size. You know, the planning acts, the planning legislation in terms of development management may apply the same within conservation areas as it does within the AONB. But there seems to be an anomaly in terms of the legislation as it applies to tree protection. So, you know, we've asked the Law Commission to pick up on this. And if that is the case, then, and they do address that, then automatically all trees over a certain size of girth, whatever, within the AONB would be protected.
Right. Well done. Thank you. I got John.
Yes, I just wanted to ask if there was any real problem about backing the Gower Society's concern for an Article 4 direction on the vial. That seemed to me to be a real problem, and I have no knowledge of the legalities. I just wondered what the officers would recommend on that.
We'll come back to that in a moment then. All right. Roger?
The volume of traffic this year in Rusilly, 400 cars an hour passing our place, and the infrastructure cannot support that volume of traffic.
Okay, thank you. Very good. That's just John's hand down. Gordon, you had your hand up there?
Yes, I'd just like to thank Paul there for that very useful bit of information, and I hope that you will participate with us as the society, not necessarily me, but in particular with Hamish. I mean, the trouble is, you lot don't talk to each other very much, and this has become obvious. You can't even talk to each other with different departments of the same organisation, never mind when it's different organisations in Wales. So I know for a fact that our complaints weren't very well coordinated with NRW. And neither of you have got the legislation that you should have. Now, the legislation that Paul has I've just written it down, Paul, and thank you very much for that. That should have been mentioned some months or even years ago. So that's great, and it should be pushed. And we will be checking this with the Association of AONBs and see what they say. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Gordon. Chris, good hand up there.
Thank you, Chair. So I can't really help with the technicalities, I'm afraid, because that's not really anything I've got much of it knowledge on. Gordon's general point about the significance of ash dieback on Gower and the loss of trees is something that we should be very concerned about, particularly at a time when, as well as looking after the trees that we've got, there is direction from all over the place about the benefits of planting more trees.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be in a position where we're having to keep what we've got and plant more. So that's going to be very difficult. The other point though is I am interested in what Paul said about the Law Commission. I'm wondering, is there anything that the partnership could do to help influence with that? And finally, Gordon mentioned about taking this up with the National Association for AONBs. I've noted that now, and I'm happy to do that automatically, Gordon. On
thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, because there has to be a way of progressing this, isn't it? An anomaly in the law as regards the violent similar circumstances. Okay, right. Thank you. No other hands up? No. Right. Thank you. Chris, again, is Kevin Brynn's update on page 15.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Well, yeah, that says what the update is, yeah. Where we are. I'm still trying to finesse some of the details of the project, in particular the source of the material for the buns, because we need to make sure that is correct for the area, bearing in mind it's site of special scientific interest and special area of conservation. So we will need to discuss with Natural Resources Wales about their formal assent for the project when I have that detail. I have now written to the landowner for their comments on the scheme as well, waiting for a response from them on the matter. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, some progress there. Thank you, Chris. Any hands up? No. Thank you. Right. Thank you so much, Chris. And item 9 then is over to Paul now for the update on the revised AONB design guide.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, not much to add to the notes there. Obviously, the policy team gave a presentation on the revised guide to the steering group. I think it was towards the end of September. As it says, majority of comments and that we received were very positive. And the main concern is there was no showstopper comments. And just minor suggestions for improvement. So, we'll take those on board and then put it into the final version of the draft to go hopefully for approval early in the new year.
Yeah, let's hope so, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, Gordon, you got your hand up there. Yeah.
On mute.
Can you unmute yourself? There you are. You're still on the mute.
Right. I'd just like to thank the team who put together, in particular, the design guide. But I think is it Ruth Henderson and her colleagues? Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, Ruth Henderson and Rachel Willis.
They did a remarkable job in from what we could see, a very short time. And as Paul said, I mean, we spent a lot of time at it, actually, probably far too long, and we probably gave far too many suggestions back, but there were only minor tweaks. There were photographs that were not the photographs which are relevant now, and it's only people who knew what they were looking at and knew Gower to be able to do that. So I'm just hoping that those suggestions that we made anyway can be taken on board. But it's a bloody good job, and well done to all of them.
Okay. Thank you, John. Got to go. All right. Thank you all. And Paul, thank you very much. As that's the work that has gone into this design guide. It is to their credit.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pass it on to the team.
If you would, yes, it is, to be fair, excellent work. John, you're happy with what was happened in the previous rather than your item coming up again now?
Sorry, Chairman. Yes, I don't. Yeah, I'm not intending to go any further. But we've had a talk, and interestingly, the subject of consultation has come up outside this context as well. Thank you.
Yeah, well, as long as you're happy, that's fine. Thank you. And then the next item, 11, then, is for information. That's Mike's department there, the SDF fund. Gives us the financial summary. Has anyone got any questions there, or Mike wanted to add anything?
I will just add that we currently have just under £20,000 uncommitted, but we do have, depending how you read the applications, we've got applications worth 11,000 in progress, so that's still not eating into the uncommitted. It is eating into the uncommitted funds. I've also had phone discussions about a couple more applications as well, so we do still have some funds left within the SDF but I think we'll have those committed and tied up fairly shortly now.
Okay. Yeah, there we are. Well, it's doing good work, isn't it? And thank you, Mike. And then the last item on our agenda then is future meeting format for Steve.
Yes, Chair. There was a communication sent out by Mike Scott regarding future meetings.
Yeah.
I would just like to ask, is it the intention that we only hold meetings from here on in via Zoom? Because I think that would be a great shame. Getting together will give you a far greater sort of participation and also a chance for people within the group to meet, and will stop us becoming isolated from one each other and possibly losing track. It was more of an open then discussion afterwards, really, and what people felt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand. I know. Well, at the moment we are where we are, aren't we? And
this is exceptional indeed.
Yes, exactly. I got Mark's hand up there. Mark.
I agree with Steve.
Never.
Good Lord.
I don't believe it.
We've been there an hour and a half now, Steve. Right. No. Did you want to add to that, Mark? No. All right. Paxton, you had your hand up.
I'm just going to agree with Steve as well, Chairman.
I know. I do understand.
The sooner we get back to things like that, the better.
Could I come back to you, Chairman?
Just a sec. Then I got Mike's hand up first, and then Mike.
I'm pleased that there's so much agreement. I'm shocked. I quite agree with Steve that I think our intentions would be certainly that some of the meetings would be actual, real, physical, face-to-face meetings. For example, the annual forum meeting, I think, would have to be live to some extent. It would be lovely to be able to live stream some of it, but that I think is an important one that has to be a live meeting. And certainly, while I appreciate how useful the team meetings are, and it's great to be able to have them recorded and streamed live, I think it would also be good to have some real face-to-face meetings as well, once things are slightly more back to normal. So
yeah.
I think this is very much something for the group to decide how you want to run things. But I would certainly support what's been said so far.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Gordon?
Can I just, with your forbearance, Chairman, I'd just like to go back to the Article 4 direction, the vial. Can I do that? I'm not going to go on, but very long.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would just before we do, I would like to say, that as regards meetings and the format, I mean, we're under the direction of, well, the law as it stands at the moment, but I do look forward to physical meetings, and I understand all that behind that. Gordon, sorry.
Very quickly, I really hope that fellow colleagues on this meeting will actually read the one sheet of A4 relating to this. And Roger touched on the 400 vehicles per hour that was going past his place this summer. It's an exceptional year. I'm not going to dwell on that. But I've got to say that you can generate a different kind of customer by the way that you advertise your business. And I think we were getting two types of customer down to Rosilly this year. There were the people who came down to do one thing and take a photograph and then buzz back to Swansea and wherever they came back. And then you got the more traditional visitor who were coming down to look at what we all publicise for it. So you compound the vehicle situation. So what what I was hoping was that I could get some sort of idea of who supports this Article 4 direction. I should have asked that, really, and I should have probably even made a proposal. But I'd just like some idea of whether or not we're singing from the same hymn sheet on this, or will there be just a lone voice?
Okay, well, we get some feedback on that in a moment. John, I got your hand up there.
Yes, I do feel quite strongly that the vial needs to be protected. It is a very strange area in many ways, and professionally, I rather the interpretation that is generally offered. But that doesn't mean I want to see it being totally commercialized. And yeah. I'm rather surprised at the lack of enthusiasm, anyway, for this proposal, which seems to me to be quite reasonable and very confined. It doesn't prevent a degree of commercialization in the area, but it protects the specific area of the vial.
Yeah, okay.
And I would hope that we would support it.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, I just took it that we were going to seek what we could do. No, that's the way I read it. I apologise. Is there any other take on it? Is there support for what Gordon's proposing?
Mr. Chair, I think there's definitely support here.
Yeah, okay.
I would probably second Gordon's.
Roger, Paxton?
Yes.
Yes?
Is Sue Hill there?
Can I say something?
I got Barbara's hand up. Barbara.
Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh,
yes.
Yeah. I quite understand your concerns, Gordon, and I really do. And I think that it's important to support that activity. I'm a bit concerned about, I've reread it again just then, a sentence where you say you're sort of deriding burger vans, and with the intimation that it brings a certain type of people. Well, really, we should be open to everybody. It should be an inclusive place, and perhaps someone that doesn't ordinarily come to Gower might be tempted by the burger van and then discover walking or something else. I think we've got to be careful how it's worded, if you know what I mean. Otherwise, it sounds a bit, toffee-nosed, doesn't it?
Yep, agreed. It's a very difficult area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But there is consensus, is there, that we can seek to see what we can do?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right. Steve, I got your hand up, and then.
Chair, very quickly, should we not also look at other parts of Gower, not just the vial?
You want to generalise it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Roger?
I support that.
Okay. Right. Is that then? No other hands coming up. John, your hand is still up there?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Gordon? Did you want to come back, Gordon?
No, I was just supporting what Steve said.
All right. Okay. So with that on board, then we will pursue that. No other points, no other hands up. Okay. Right. Well, in that case, then we will call the meeting to a conclusion and look forward to seeing you. Well, according to this, Monday, March the 15th, 2021. And in the meantime, well, that feels a long way away. But in the meantime, can I wish you all the best for the festive season and good health. Thank you all.
Thank you very much,
Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Nice to see you all. Happy Christmas.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, folks.